Hey guys, ForeverRetro 2 here. Hope you're staying safe and being well out there. So I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about my first computer. Now, I never owned a computer throughout most of my childhood. We would have to go to friends' house to play one because their parents are more financially stable and structured than my own. So the only time I was able to use a computer was in school at the time. My first computer was an Apple IIe, which I figured out at the age of 3 when I would be at school doing certain things. Like we had this typing program. I think I mentioned it in streams and then Let's Plays and whatnot. There's a thing, it was called QWERTY. QWERTY is the first keys on your keyboard. Like your first 7, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, your first 7 keyboards in the letter part of your keyboard is called QWERTY. And it was this little thing called QWERTY. It looked like, I can't find any kind of images or any kind of like information on QWERTY. It almost seems like it's a fragment in my imagination, but I'm telling you right now, there was a program called QWERTY, and it was this little sun thing with a bunch of drops around its face. It was round like the sun. It had eyeballs, and every time it would talk, it would flash and make a sound every time it would write to you. Like it would say, please fill in the blanks as they appear on the screen. And while I was doing that, you'd hear sounds. And it's like no one remembers QWERTY from it. I mean, I guess it was a very short-lived or very not remembered fondly kind of thing, I guess, because I can't find nothing on it online. So, that's kind of sad because that was one of my first computing experiences, and it would be nice to, use an emulator or something to relive using that program, even though it's simple by today's standards, because I gotten a little smarter, not by much, but I got a little smarter. Right, so. And growing up, I mentioned on stream a few times where I had a friend, his name was Roger, and he had a Commodore 64, and that's where I first experienced a Commodore 64. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to experience it as much as some people would if they had one, because, well, he had a household that, I don't want to get into too much detail. He didn't have a very kind household, let's just put it that way. So, a lot of the time we would leave and go walk somewhere, or that he'd come chill at my house where we had an Atari 2600. Or we would just do something else, like run around and play tag, or just do some mischievous shit, like grab bats and beat the shit out of each other. Not like... I know that sounds like this, like, what the fuck you guys been doing? No, it was all in good fun. We weren't hitting each other hard or nothing. It was just, we had our own version of tag where we would just grab a bat and smack the motherfucker a little bit, just like give him a little, kind of like that, like, you're it, motherfucker, good times. Yeah, my childhood, I had some pretty fun moments in my childhood. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic. So, played the Commodore. It was the first place I played Commando, Outrun, and a few other games that were on the Commodore. And he had a decent collection. All of his shit was pirated, of course, but hey, I don't think there's not one kid growing up during that time frame that didn't pirate. Now you have these, like, white knights that are like, oh, pirating is bad. Alright, here's the thing. If you're going to pirate, you're going to pirate. If you're going to support the company, you're going to support the company. That's just it. Anyways, so unfortunately Roger had to move a couple years after that, and I didn't have any kind of, like, access to a computer, at least one that I could use, extensively. Eventually we had to move from where we were, and I lived at home. We moved, and of course, my school had computers, but you could barely use them unless you were in keyboard class, which was kind of shitty. But at the same time, no computing, so I was, a happy kid playing my consoles and, going outside and, tossing a football around, throwing a frisbee, shit like that. The stuff that kids do. Of course, I wouldn't mind throwing a frisbee with somebody, for fun. I still like frisbees. They're a lot of fun to play. I also like frisbee golf. But fast forward to 1995. I was 13 years old at the time. My mom was working at it's been defunct actually for a long time, I think after the turn of the millennium, place called Qualific. It's defunct. I don't know exactly what she did there. I know she worked with the mechanics. She may have been a tool pusher, but I don't know. I need to ask her next time I call her, because I want to get that story straight, at least when it comes to her profession at that time frame. but my brother would go to a friend's house down this road, and he had a computer. Well, his mom had a computer. He didn't have one of his own at the time, but he eventually did get one not too far off to when we first were hanging out with him. I mean, we also would just sit around and play, Super Nintendo all the time, because he was a Super Nintendo gamer, much like myself, which pissed my brother off because he was a Sega fanboy, right? So most of the time, my brother wouldn't go over there because he's like, "Oh, you guys are just gonna play the crappy Super Nintendo again, like it's like disease or something." It's like, dude, and we would invite him over. It's like, dude, we got WWF Raw, and he had a multi-tap. It's like, come play with us. The only game that he was actually able to stand and play and enjoy was Secret of Mana. I mean, all four of us would sit, or three of us would sit there and play the game to get all together. My buddy Steve would be, the main character with the sword. My brother would be the sprite, and I'd be the chick. I don't know her name. You name your characters if memory serves me. But yeah, we play that, and we actually beat it. That took a long time to do so, because that game is brutally difficult, at least in my opinion. So in 1995, my mom had this little issue where she'd be like, how much do you guys like computers? And me and my brother were resounding, hell yeah, because a lot of the games that my friend Steve was showing us at the time, we had a good time with. That's where I first experienced Doom, Wolfenstein, Dragon Knight 3. I'm not saying nothing. It's a naughty game. Right. He had a BBS, and he would pirate the shit out of games all the time. So, he was never short of games, ever. I mean, there were times they did buy games, too. I mean, they bought the Quest for Glory series and all that. But some games that, he heard from word of mouth and during school and such, for those who were fortunate enough to have the money to purchase computers, was able to get... he would go on BBS sites and get those games. Of course, unfortunately, they would sometimes have viruses and kill his computer. More on that later. So, eventually he got one of his own from doing well in school. He was on the honor roll all 4 semesters of the school year one year in 1995. So, his mom wanted to give him something really nice for his hard work. So she got him a Pentium, and that thing was nice. It was a 133 megahertz machine. I don't know the whole specifications. I just know that much. So... my mom so once again, my mom asked us how much we were into computing, and my brother and I were like, well, hell yeah. I mean, Steve has a computer, and we go over there, and, he shows us shit, he lets us play stuff, and we have a good time with it. It's glorious. It's PC, after all. I mean, at the time, it was something to behold. She's like, okay. She's like, how would you guys like a computer of your own? And me and my brother were looked at each other with, this wide-eyed expression, yeah, of course. She's like, okay. She's like, well, as you all know, I don't have that much money, but I'll see what I can find, and maybe we can get you guys a machine. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I'm like, finally, I can actually, do what my buddy Steve's doing, and he can get us software, with his pirating expertise. It's not an expertise. You just dial up to a server, and you go to a BBS website, and you put in a bunch of commands and shit, and you get your software. It's not rocket science. BBS stands for Bulletin Board System, if you care to know. It was basically, I want to say it was the early 90s version, or maybe even the 80s version of the dark web, where you can get software and a lot of information and stuff. It was alright. It was basically web negative version 0.05. Because, like I said, it was all ASCII characters and DOS symbols and shit. It wasn't amazing, but nostalgia's sake, for the time it was pretty amazing, because you got to get games and software and shit. It was awesome. So, my mom went to her work and asked people for, computer-based questions, or where she can find a computer, or where she can score a computer for, and get some price ideas and whatnot. Finally, she found somebody. I don't necessarily know who this person was, but it was apparently the sister of someone she worked with at her job. And for some odd reason, I don't know, and it still pisses me off to this day, she decides to take my brother to the place to look at the computer. My brother's tech-tarded. He claims to know a lot, but he always has people put together computers for him to this day. I mean, I build my own. I put the components in myself, and They work, obviously. I mean, I'm using one that I put together, of course, that I was given the parts for. Of course, I had the help of somebody too, which was nice because he had the tools, and my tools are here, and his tools are at his place. So I could have done it myself, but he insisted. But he just put the board and processor in, and I did everything else. So thanks, buddy. Anyways, that being said, she took my brother with him, and I guess well, I was excited. When you're a kid and you're about to get something you really, really want, or you've been excited for a very long time, and sometimes it's a pipe dream and sometimes it's not. It's like I had a mismatch of that where I was just so excited I was like fucking shaking and shit. Like I was having a panic attack, but it was a good panic attack, meaning I was so excited, so anxious to the point where I just couldn't wait. Eventually, an hour passes by, and Mom finally comes in, and I run outside, and then sure enough, I saw I saw a monitor, I saw the machine, and I saw some wood and everything. And at first I'm thinking, what's the wood? But then it clicked on me. I'm like, we have a computer. Holy shit, I am so excited. Now, unfortunately, the Tandy 1000 was basically horribly outdated by this point. And what I mean by outdated, like holy balls, I mean it was a king in the 80s, and it's still for people who are hobbyists and enjoy retro technology, it still fit the bill for them. I mean, but this was a time frame where nostalgia wasn't as big as it is today. So, I was like, what's this wood? What the hell is this? Well, apparently the Tandy 1000 was sitting in a desk-like setup. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we have to build this thing before we can even use the computer. Well, my brother is a dumb fuck. He didn't remember how they put it together. So, guess who had to take over? Not to stroke my own dick or to give myself a pat on the back, but I figured out most of that shit my fucking self. However, I couldn't figure out the... it was supposed to have a top part where you would put like paper and shit for your printer, because we got the computer, the monitor, and a printer for the thing. Unfortunately, it was a dot matrix printer. Those things are annoying as fuck. If you ever want to look up one, just look up dot matrix printer sounds on YouTube, and you'll find exactly what I'm talking about. It's a sound I don't care to remember because they used to give me migraines. So, trying to remember. So basically, I put the desk together. I was like, or at least part of it, and I put together the printer setup, which is similar to this table I have over here. And I went ahead and put the computer and the monitor on because my brother's a lazy fuck. To this day, he's still a lazy bitch. Anyways, so we put it all together, and then I'm like, all right, we can plug this in and see what's what, right? I wish it was that simple, because basically, I lived in a house that didn't have ground. It just, I can't say most because that would be inaccurate. All the plugs in my house were just two-prongers. There was never the ground one. So, which, my grandfather built the house, alright? I had no idea, no how. I mean, they worked fine. We never had power issues in my home, ever. It's just... At that time frame, oh Jesus Christ, it sucked. I hated it. So I'm like, oh, so how the fuck are we supposed to play this? How am I supposed to check? And then my dad was like, well, we got to buy an adapter, or maybe a couple adapters. I'm like, bullshit. So I put this desk together. I put the printer table together to connect to the desk. I have those as fully assembled. And now that all that hard work was put into place that I did on my own fucking self, I can't reward myself by using a computer we just bought. He's like, well, yeah, you'll have to wait till the weekend to try it out or whatever. I'll have to go out to the store and get it because I don't get paid till Friday. And I'm just like, oh, fuck off. This was like Wednesday. And when you're a kid, just waiting a day, just one fucking day for something, like Christmas Eve, like say it's Christmas Eve 1991. And you want to get it, you're anticipating an SNES, right? That fucking moment between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day is hell for your mental. It's health for your mental health. You're just like, I want my Super Nintendo. You act like a kid that that's just lost his shit. It sucked. I mean, I wasn't like that, obviously, but I do remember not being able to sleep at all from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day because I was just so bloody excited to get my Super Nintendo. But anyways, and I did, and it was glorious. So I'm thinking, this can't do. This can't do. Okay? I mean, there's got to be something in this house that I can use to make this fucker work, at least until my dad picks up some adapters or some shit, you know. So I went in the junk drawer. We have a junk. I don't know if any of you had a junk drawer growing up, or if you have a junk drawer now. A junk drawer is basically, as the namesake is, you pull open the drawer, and you find components to. You find basically components or utilities that you have, but you couldn't find anywhere else to store them, so you'd store them basically in there. And then in doing so, you know, sometimes you find anything, clamps, the extension cords, shit. So I was like, you know, I'm going down there and see if I can find anything. And we had a pretty big junk drawer. I mean, this thing is fucking huge. It's about maybe as long as my desk, and my desk is about that long. So about as long as my shoulders, given the wide view cam of my camera here, a wide view. Anyways, so I went down there, opened the drawer, and I found something that is pretty much similar. Now, this isn't exactly one point, but I wanted to find something that could give you guys an example of what basically I used. I used this. Now, this isn't exactly what it was, but it was very similar. It was a block cube about this size, and it was black, and it had power. As you can see, that thing had a bunch of power outlets. What I had was very similar to this. So, I was able to plug in both the computer, the monitor, and of course the printer and that cube. I was like, awesome. But then, you know, if you look at this picture here, you see how the main plug-in is a 3-pronger? Yeah, this thing had the fucking 3-pronger, and I'm like, bullshit! So, I looked in the junk drawer some more, and I couldn't find anything, and I was like, shit. But then, okay, you know what those are. I went in the basement, and sure enough, they were using an adapter for the dryer. That was a 2-pronger. It was round and black. It wasn't one of these, but I'm just using that for context. It was round. It was about. It looked like a maybe, I don't know, a little hockey puck or a Oreo cookie or something. I don't fucking know. And it had 2 prongs. I'm like, this can work. So I asked my parents, of course. I'm like, hey, can I go ahead and use this just to play on the computer for a little while, and then this weekend we can get the adapters and all that. And well, since they already did laundry the night before, everyone had their laundry done, I guess, for the most part. It was fine. So I was like, you know, just super fucking happy, like a fucking hyper ass kid. So, you know, plugged it in, and I asked my brother, I'm like, okay, so since you were able to use this computer, okay, so what do we do here? Well, so we plugged it in, turned it on, and worked just fine, as expected. You know, I remember looking at my brother, and I'm thinking, we finally have a machine of our own. And then I saw basically what this machine was capable of running, at least to some extent. And I can't help but felt like a spoiled brat. I felt disappointed. Because, you know, I'm like, oh, I can't play the games that our buddy down the road, Steve, has and shit. But, you know, I tried to say, you know what, it's a computer. Fuck it. We'll find something for a use for it that will have it fun with it. And, well, he showed me basically, my brother, because he used it before I did, there was a program that I really loved called Tandy Deskmate, and it had a music writer where you got to listen and compose PSG sounds. It had like a calendar. Basically, it was like Windows 2.0. It was fantastic. It worked well, and we also got a handful of games we played and that we got and played, and we had our friend down the street who said he was going to go on BBS sites because there are some with retro games on there for PCs that he was going to find that we could work on our computer. That would work on our computer. Unfortunately, our disk drive was wonky. You could copy files from the disk to the hard drive, but you could not copy games from the hard drive to the disk. The disk would break. You get that lovely, it's still branded in my brain, general failure. I hate that shit. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't know too much. I just knew that there was something wrong with that drive. So I couldn't take it apart. I didn't know what to do with it. I mean, it probably just needed a cleaning head. The head needed to be cleaned, or maybe the heads were deteriorated from, you know, overuse or something, and maybe it just needed a new drive. We had double density disk drives though, and they were terrible for that. And what's funny is drive A would work, but drive B didn't at all, and it was connected and everything. I even took it apart once just to see if it was, and I noticed all the wires were connected to it and everything. I couldn't understand. So, you know, we found some games, and we actually had a very early version of I think it was a Print Shop. Don't know if any of you used that growing up, but yeah, I made like some banners and shit, and it was a lot of fun. I used some, you know, some pictures, got some pictures, and of course hearing that that is also branded in my fucking eardrums to the end of time. But the point being is I was extremely happy that that I had a computer. Now, unfortunately, remember how back I said that my friend got viruses from BBS as well? Guess who contracted those viruses? Well, not me entirely, but my computer. We had something called the monkey virus, and it infected our computer so badly to the point where it actually was able to basically delete the hard drive readability and everything, to the point where it got so bad to where the C drive wasn't even accessible. It had to be reformatted. So that kind of sucked. Because my father knew a guy at his work who was a computer hobbyist himself, and he would do it as a side job to make some extra money. Most people did that, and some people still do that to this day. So he had to install a version of Norton that would work on our machine, a very early version of Norton, and it got rid of that monkey virus. And I was thinking, how the hell we get that in the first place? But then I went ahead and scanned some of our games we got from our friend down the road, and that's where it came from, the discs. Yeah, the games that I played the most are the ones that I installed on our hard drive, and that's all it takes. And then if you have an infected executable, then yeah, you are going to have a virus regardless. And it was a pain in the dick. I didn't scold him for it, but he did explain that his computer was doing some wonky shit too. And I explained, well, you know, we got an antivirus system on our machine, so you better get one for yours. And he did. And he had like, gosh, 17 viruses, one of them being the monkey virus. I don't know all the ones that he had, but it really affected his software driver for software rendering and whatnot. Like the colors would get all trippy, like an acid trip. It was crazy. But yeah, so I know there's no really proper way to end this story, but that's how I got my Tandy 1000 TX. Unfortunately, it died in the year 2001. I was using it to just look up, because I had some old files on there, and I was looking at some of the things for nostalgia purposes, just to kill some time. I heard a pop, and then I heard... So what happened probably is either a capacitor popped or something just exploded. I couldn't open it because one of the screws was worn out. And I didn't know how to fix that. I know how to now. You basically get like a super sharp bit, and you just basically eat through that fucker and get rid of it, and then put one in there that actually has the threads in there. So, rest in peace, Tandy 1000 TX. You were definitely a beautiful machine for your time, and you definitely gave me and my brother some hours of entertainment. Speaking of which, my next video will be basically 5 games that I spent probably the most time on. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably not going to be anything special, but I want to share it with you guys because I love basically computing. I love computers. I loved, for the entirety of my life, I've been using computers since the age of 3, so it's something that just refuses to die. I'm not hardcore on it like some of you out there may be, but you know, I do enjoy computing. I do like doing things on a computer. It's something I just always have enjoyed. And they give us problems sometimes, sure, but that's just something. It's like owning a dog or a cat, or unfortunately, bringing a child into the world with some kind of deficiency, you just have to deal with it. You know, you love it all the same, and you will do anything you can to take care of it and keep it around. So, with that being said, I am ForeverRetro 82. I am signing off. And like I said, the next video will be about basically 5 games that I played the most on the Tandy 1000. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and I hope you enjoy this video for what it's worth. And we'll definitely see you on the next video. Take care.